Aiming to stem the economic panic sparked by the coronavirus pandemic, the Federal Reserve slashes rates to zero and launches a massive $700 billion quantitative easing program. Rattled by the surprise announcement, South Korean shares start the week up a little. Starting Monday midnight, the South Korean government requires all arrivals from European countries to get through mandatory special quarantine procedures as a way to curb the spread of the virus from Europe. Plus, more countries are locking their borders over fears the virus may be carried via international travelers. Germany, Denmark, and Norway are bolting their respective borders shut. This as 138 countries have imposed travel restrictions against travelers from South Korea. Now, we start this morning with an emergency move by the Federal Reserve aimed at helping the U.S. economy ride the increasingly choppy tides of the coronavirus outbreak. Now, this morning, it has slashed its key interest rate to a level not seen since during the 2008 global financial crisis, which is at 0%. For more, we have our Yoon Jung-min on the line for us. So, Jung-min, walk us through the latest.
Sure, Simon. The Fed has slashed its benchmark interest rate to 0% to 0.25% from the previous 1 to 1.25%. It wasn't that long ago that the Fed cut its key rate earlier this month. Now they are at the zero level, something we haven't seen since the global financial crisis over a decade ago. The Fed is going to launch a massive $700 billion quantitative easing program. It will be in the form of $500 billion of treasuries and $200 billion of agency-backed mortgage securities. The purchases will begin on Monday local time. In addition, the Fed said it will take action with central banks around the world to enhance dollar liquidity through existing swap arrangements. They include the Bank of Canada, the Bank of England, the Bank of Japan, the European Central Bank, and the Swiss National Bank. The move also puts intense pressure on South Korea's central bank to hop on the global bandwagon by slashing South Korea's key rate. The Bank of Korea has already hinted it will hold an emergency rate-setting meeting this week, likely as early as Tuesday. As it stands, the BOK's benchmark rate is at 1.25%. That was left unchanged during its monetary board meeting late last month, citing the need to take a wait-and-see approach. Separately, officials in South Korea have been holding a series closed-door macroeconomic finance-related meetings to discuss the economic impacts South Korea could face over the growing market uncertainty. They are also meeting this morning.
So, turning our focus to the markets now, how did the South Korean markets take the news from the Federal Reserve?
Right. The benchmark KOSPI opened about 1.9% higher on Monday, and the KOSDAQ opened over 2% higher, but they keep bopping up and down. So we'll have to keep an eye on them. In fact, from today, short selling is banned for 6 months on the Korean markets. This is to protect companies from the economic blowback as the coronavirus pandemic widens. The duration of the ban, however, will depend on future conditions. The ban is the third of its kind in South Korea. The last ban was put in place in the summer of 2011. That's all for me, Taemin.
Thank you, our Yoon Jung-min, for the latest on the market and the central banks across the world. Now, around the globe, the stock market losses topped 16 trillion US dollars in just 52 days since fears over the coronavirus gripped the world. Our Kim Hyo-sun with the latest.
The coronavirus outbreak has wiped more than 16 trillion US dollars off the global stock market. According to data released by Bloomberg, COVID-19 has erased nearly $16.7 trillion in 86 countries as of March 12th. This is a whopping 18.7% drop from $89 trillion to $72.5 trillion in just 52 days. That figure is nearly 10 times the GDP of South Korea. Of the nations, over 30 countries saw more than a 20% drop, with Russia and Australia shedding more than 30%. The South Korean stock market, which was in 28th place in terms of decline, dropped 22.1%. During the same period, the U.S. and U.K. markets shed 18.8% and 26.1% respectively. On the other hand, China, where COVID-19 originated, witnessed a relatively moderate decline of 4.2%. Italy, which is now experiencing a rapid spread of the virus, has saw a drop of more than 25%. Global stock markets are now on the brink of entering a bearish phase. Kim Il-san, Arirang News.
South Korea, starting this Monday, is implementing special quarantine measures on all arrivals from all European countries. Prime Minister Chung Se-kyun, during what's become a daily Central Disaster and Safety Countermeasures headquarters meeting, said it has increased the number of countries subject to special measures to now including all of Europe. Previously, South Korea had only deemed special screening measures necessary for flights from Italy, France, Germany, Spain, the UK, and the Netherlands. South Korea has also implemented similar measures to all arrivals from China, Japan, and Iran. The PM also ordered the health and foreign ministries to review the necessity of additional measures in curbing the inflow of infections from overseas. The number of travel restrictions against South Korea continues to rise as fears over the coronavirus pandemic swell worldwide. And many countries are also closing their borders to travelers from overseas in a bid to stem the spread of the virus. Our Kim Da-mi with this report.
More countries and regions are bolting their doors to travelers from South Korea. According to South Korea's Foreign Ministry, a total of 138 countries and regions have imposed travel restrictions against the country as of 10 p.m. Korea time on Sunday. Such restrictions are not limited to people from South Korea. Starting Monday, Germany will impose temporary controls on its borders with France, Switzerland, Austria, Denmark, and Luxembourg. However, commuters will be allowed to cross the border for work, and the free movement of goods will be unaffected. Other EU states are also making similar moves. Over the weekend, Denmark sealed its border for a month, and Norway will take the same measure on Monday. Poland has already shut its borders to foreigners entering the country with no alien registration card. This comes as all international travelers landing in Beijing will be quarantined for 2 weeks at their own expense. From Monday, foreigners arriving the Chinese capital from overseas will be transferred to a central isolation facility for 14 days of observation. It applies to everyone, even people with no COVID-19 symptoms. The restriction came after Beijing on Sunday confirmed 5 new cases that originated in other countries, including Spain, Italy, and Thailand. Kim Da-mi, Arirang News.
Following the surge in number of coronavirus cases in Italy, a number of other European nations are also seeing their numbers spike. Our Lee Seung-jae with us details.
Last Friday, WHO Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus said Europe had become the new epicenter of the COVID-19 pandemic, saying more cases and deaths have been reported in the region than the rest of the world combined, apart from China. As of Sunday, more than 67,000 cases and over 2,300 deaths have been confirmed in Europe. Italy added over 3,500 more cases on Sunday, raising the total to over 24,000. It also reported 368 more deaths, surpassing 1,800. Other European nations are continuing to see a surge, with Spain reporting over 1,400 confirmed cases and 96 deaths, while Germany added over 1,200 cases and 2 deaths. Despite the spike in number of confirmed cases, Germany has seen a relatively low death toll at 11. The World Trade Organization also announced last week that it's canceling all meetings until March 20th, after one of its employees was diagnosed with the virus. Aside from workers who need to be present, all employees have been advised to work from home to practice social distancing. In addition, the UN's Geneva office is not allowing visitors to prevent further spread of the virus. Amid the outbreak in Europe, French President Emmanuel Macron announced last Friday that G7 leaders will hold an extraordinary leaders summit via video conference on Monday. According to Macron, the leaders will coordinate research efforts on a vaccine and treatments while working on an economic and financial response. With Switzerland also seeing an alarming rise in cases, observers fear it could disrupt the many international agencies located in the country. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
For many people, using public transportation to get around may be their only option, and many are concerned about the spread of the coronavirus through subway trains and buses. And in a bid to put passengers' minds at ease, bus companies here in South Korea have stepped up their efforts to sterilize their buses. Our Kim Bo-kyung tells us more.
As each bus enters the depot, people wearing protective suits go on board. They sterilize the inside of the bus to reduce the spread of COVID-19 on Seoul's public transport.
The first bus starts at 5 a.m. and the last one comes in past midnight. Every bus goes on different routes. Buses with shorter routes come here 16 times a day, and buses with longer routes come here 5 times a day. Whenever a bus completes its route once, it comes here to get sterilized.
Right after buses come into the depot, ultrafine particle sterilizer is sprayed.
To make sure no traces of the virus remain, workers soak the clothes with sterilizer and wipe the handles and seats one more time.
As well as spraying and wiping down the buses several times a day, the whole garage is sterilized every 3 or 4 days. Bus drivers also take part in sterilizing the inside of the bus while on their routes. They are given personal sanitizing sprays so that they can sterilize the areas near the driver's seat and the parts of the bus that passengers often touch. Drivers also ask passengers to wear masks and clean their hands using the sanitation gel provided next to the bus doors when getting on and off the bus.
These days, citizens are very worried about the virus, but there are some who do not wear masks. If you're not wearing a mask, please follow the proper etiquette, such as covering your mouth when sneezing.
Through joint efforts, public transport can stay clean and sanitized to help stop the spread of COVID-19. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
South Korea and the United States are set to hold their 7th round of negotiations on this year's defense cost sharing in Los Angeles this week. Seoul's top negotiator Chung Eun-bo is to leave for Los Angeles this evening for 2 days of talks starting Tuesday. Now, the two sides are meeting for the first time in 2 months after their expected meeting in Seoul in February did not take place. Both Seoul and Washington are still far apart on how much South Korea should be paying this year. The U.S. has reportedly stepped back from its initial request for Seoul to pay $5 billion, but Seoul sees the amount Washington is asking for as still going beyond what it can bear. Shifting focus, recent satellite images appear to show that specialized railcars are being moved at North Korea's main nuclear site. According to the U.S.-based North Korea monitoring website 38 North on Sunday, 3 railcars that arrived at the Yeongbyeon Nuclear Center by February 10th had departed by the end of the month. The website noted the movement suggests the North could have been transporting reagents used in nuclear fuel production or waste handling and decontamination processes. But there was no evidence the transported products were radioactive. The website also added there was some fresh snowfall on some of the facilities, but noted that it cannot prove the suspension of its operation.
Good morning. We had a chilly start to the day. Most regions saw sub-zero lows, but highs will rise quickly, leading to wide temperature differences, but will still be cooler than this season norms across the country. Heavy snow advisories that were in place in parts of Gangwon-do and Gyeongsang-Bukdo provinces have been lifted. Meanwhile, southeastern regions, including Busan, Ulsan, and Daegu, as well as parts of Gyeonggi-do, are still under dry weather advisories. And for a closer look at today's highs, Seoul will get up to 9 degrees. Other regions will top out low teens this afternoon, and sunny skies will be featured all day. A welcome warming trend starts tomorrow, while inland regions will see rain on Tuesday and Thursday. That's Korea for you, and here's the international weather for viewers around the world.
Now that does it for us at this hour on Arirang News. As always, thank you for watching and goodbye.